So I built my own computer. It's pretty cool. I debated back and forth for the last couple of months as I was studying and learning, so that I could actually do the job and build it. I went back and forth because the world is changing. Nobody knows what the economy is going to look like. Nobody knows what's going on. Was it the best time for me to build a computer? Depends on your perspective. I've wanted to do this for a long time. This is a goal I set for myself in 2020, that by the end of the year I would build my own computer. And the reason for that was because I switched to the Sony system. My previous computer, which was built for me by a friend, I picked out the parts, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just went, that looks good. That looks good. Is it compatible? Yeah, it was compatible. Okay. And I had a D7100. I had an old Nikon. Well, even at the time I bought it, it wasn't, brand new technology. And it was perfect. That system is still a good computer. And it was perfect for that Nikon D7100. But for mirrorless cameras where you're shooting in 4K, and I am creating content, it wasn't enough. I tried upgrading some of the stuff, and it just wasn't enough. It would take too long to produce videos. Simple videos just took way too long. And in order to do more, I needed more. There's a couple things. Number one, you have to take chances. You have to invest in yourself. But investing in yourself doesn't just mean spending money. It means you actually have to go through with things. Number two, it's important to accomplish goals. Little ones and big ones. For me personally, this was a pretty big one. Not a huge one, but a pretty big one. This was something, again, I didn't know how to do. I had to sit down and watch 2.5 months worth of videos. And most of them repetitive, but learning and figuring things out. And there's so many little details. Overall, the process of building your computer is simple. But there's a lot of little details that you need to know when you're building it that I had to study for. And things would come up. Somebody would say something offhand like, wait, what does that mean? Why do I need this? Why do I need that? I had a problem when I was putting in my new power supply. Won't get into the specifics of it, but I had a panic moment. I had to do more research as I was building the damn thing. This was a goal of mine from 2020, and I wanted to accomplish it. And I'll be able to do more. That's the thing. Like, this isn't just a toy. I'm going to be able to do more with it. And not only that, but now I have friends that want to build their own computers. I got a buddy that's actually kind of driving me nuts. If he sees this, you're driving me nuts with constantly sending me build guides, trying to figure out which part, just choose one. Just choose one, buddy. But anyway, I'm probably going to be building his when he gets his parts in. I have a couple of other friends, and I'm excited to do it. I want to get better at it because, to be honest with you, when you see this thing, it's a great computer. It's beautiful in a lot of ways. My cable management, which if you watch any of these guys that I'm going to recommend to you in a minute, if you watch any of these guys, cable management is a big stickler for people that build computers. My cable management wasn't great, but it's my first time. I don't know what to do. So anyway, really quickly, Linus Tech Tips, one of the premier computer build channels. Linus Tech Tips. Jayz 2 Cents, really cool guy. You can actually see he built a computer for Terry Crews, and that video is very entertaining. You should check that out. Terry Crews is awesome. I would love to meet Terry Crews. Hell, I'd love to build a computer for Terry Crews, but he has much better people to do it for him. Anyway, but the person I watched most was actually a guy named Bitwit. Bitwit. Again, the link will be down there. But super entertaining guy, and he's the one I found myself gravitating most towards. Even though I watch a lot of Linus Tech Tips, Bitwit, for some reason, I don't know, resonated with me. Highly recommend. Very entertaining guy, very informative. So anyway, and there's a bunch of other channels. There's a ton of them. Those are just the ones primarily. Now I watched a few other guys as well, but those were primarily the channels that I watched. But yeah, so I built my own computer, and I'm proud of myself. In fact, I was kind of disappointed when I told people, "Hey, I did it. I finished." You know, people were like, "Oh, that's cool," and I was like, "Come on, give me something, give me something." I built my own computer. Like, that's pretty huge. You know, can you do that? No, you can't. Actually, you can. And if you want to, I'm gonna say this, but also caution you. You can and you should. But, number one, make sure you need to. One of my friends that is trying to build a computer, I was talking to, and he's like, yeah, I was pricing out something and it's $1,200. And I was like, you don't need that. And he was like, well, this is what I want to do. And I was like, well, then you need to spend a lot more. I was like, but you know, like, are you going to really use this computer for the thing that you say? Are you going to actually, again, it's good to invest in yourself, but you actually have to do the thing. If you're going to spend all that money, if you're going to buy a super expensive camera, you better be out there shooting. And you know what? Since I've gotten an A7 III and A6400, particularly the A6400, I've been shooting a lot more. I've been doing my best to shoot all the time. And I've gotten much better as a photographer. I still have a ways to go, but I feel comfortable calling myself a professional photographer at this point. And I have a project that I'll mention at the end of this video, and to that end. But anyway, I invested in myself, but I'm following through. To be fair, the A7 III, I didn't follow through quite as much because I was so worried about somebody stealing it or it getting broken. The A6400, still an expensive camera. What I'm shooting on right now is probably about $2,000. No, it's $2,000 for sure. You know, but if I'm shooting with A7 III, just the body is $2,000. So, am I worried about this getting stolen? Yes. And it almost got stolen when I was downtown in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Different story, doesn't matter. But going on to length. The point is, invest in yourself but follow through. So if you're going to build this new computer, cool. How much do you want to spend? You can build a really good computer right now for $500, depending on what you want to do. If you're doing higher end stuff like I was, $500 probably ain't going to cut it. Probably not worth it for that amount of money. My computer was around $1,000 altogether, and I'm probably still going to add a couple things. I want a newer cooler. I also want to add another two sticks of RAM and get mine up to 32 gigabytes. But altogether, roughly about $1,000. And I needed to spend that. And that's not even, this is for a pretty decent system. This isn't going to blow away everything on the market, but it's a pretty decent computer that is definitely going to keep up with my workload the way I needed it to. Oh, by the way, that's not counting the operating system. Windows is another $100. But anyway, so you need to build, you know, bear in mind what you actually need and what you're going to use it for. And, you know, and also, I'm going to say this, don't worry about how cool it looks on the inside. Worry about performance. If you have a budget. If you don't have a budget, hey, you can go crazy. You can build a killer system. The system that I would have liked to have built probably would have cost me about $1,500 or $1,600. Actually, the system that I want to build now would cost me about $7,000. But that's the kind of system that you build when you're looking to make, you know, Pixar movies. I'm not saying I want to build Pixar movies, but, you know, who knows, one day. So anyway, so what did I use? I started off, I wanted to use an AMD processor. Most people use Intel, and AMD for a long time was kind of the cheap you know, if you couldn't afford anything, you went with AMD. It wasn't considered like a serious competitor with Intel. All that's changed. AMD's been kicking Intel's ass lately, partially in terms of performance, but largely in terms of price. One of my friends that is looking at building a computer was looking to build an Intel computer, and I was like, oh, you know, if you go with like one that's a couple years old, you could probably spend about as much I did, you know, which was $200, and get a pretty decent chip. Nope. Turns out like even the older ones were like $400. No, sir. No, not paying for that. Not buying that. So I went with an AMD Ryzen 5 3600. For a few bucks more, could have got 3600X, but given the performance difference, just seemed like 3600 would do fine. Didn't make a lot of sense to spend an extra 40 or 50, whatever it was. Also, let's see, I went with the MSI Tomahawk Max motherboard. And motherboard choices is another thing where you had to do your research. I had to know which ones. Compatibility is a big thing, and some things are only sort of compatible, and I won't get into details, but I went with a Sapphire Pulse RX 580 graphics card. Not the best one on the market, but for $200, it's pretty awesome. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM in it. And speaking of RAM, I went with a two 8 gigabyte sticks of Corsair Vengeance. Again, I want to add another 16 gigs of RAM to get myself up to 32, but 16 for, if you're a creator like myself, 16 is the bare minimum you should be going with. And then the last major component was my M.2 drive, which replaced my regular solid state drive. I think it does like 3,500 megabytes a second, and it was a Western Digital blue. Nope, Western Digital black. Anyway, those are the components. If you want to watch somebody actually build a computer, go watch those guys. Bitwit, any of those guys. Linus Tech Tips, Jayz 2 Cents. Go watch those guys. They've done it 100 times. It looks better. It makes more sense. They have people actually, some of them have people actually filming it, rather than just me by myself. But I will show you the actual computer I built. And Fractal Meshify was the case that I went, and it looks pretty awesome. Anyway, so yeah, watch these, and then I'm gonna have one last thing to say at the end of this. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so that was pretty cool. Again, very happy with that computer. I feel very accomplished. And again, if I can do it, you can do it. So what's the last thing? Well, in the next few days, I'm going to be announcing a Kickstarter. I've decided to take my photography to the next step, and I am going to be doing a photography book. I don't want to say what it's about until the Kickstarter is launched. Not that it'll make a difference, but I'm just paranoid. But I will announce exactly what it is in the next video once my Kickstarter is launched, and I'll link to the Kickstarter, obviously. But I wish me luck, I guess. I'm very excited for this, and it's the biggest thing I've ever done. And I mean, I'll be self-publishing, but hopefully I can find a publisher out there that would want to then take that book and spread it out to the world. Who knows? So thank you, and believe in your dreams or something. I don't know. I'm not great with endings.